Tom, to touch on some Arkansas players first, let's start with John Ridgeway because he is the Dallas Cowboy as of this weekend. There's some really cool audio from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and him and some other Cowboys personnel. What did you think of Jerry's decision and Stephen's decision to go and draft the Vanilla Gorilla?
Well, good morning, everybody. I love the nickname Vanilla Gorilla. Ridgeway was such a joy to be covering this year, and boy, they like Sam Pittman said back in December, if I could take 4 or 5 John Ridgeways, sign one every year out of the portal, I would. Unfortunately, there aren't any John Ridgeways in the portal right now, but I thought it was a great pick. It was around the area. In fact, a lot of folks had him slotted a little bit higher than that. I think he's going to be a help on their depth chart. He's a guy, he can take a gap, and you don't have to worry about that gap on almost every play. I mean, he's not going to be some fantastic pass rusher for you, but he's going to tie up blockers, and he's going to be a positive guy in your locker room. And I think the Cowboys got him a good one. When that pick was coming up, and they got somebody else 2 or 3 picks right before that, but they had to feel pretty good that they were going to get him. And I thought it was amazing. I had not seen the pictures beforehand, but him posing with Jerry Jones down at AT&T Stadium and that kind of thing. So I got a big chuckle listening to the phone call, the secret audio of him and Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn, all of them using a little bit of salty language. But Jerry Jones was funny talking about those pigs can come down here and kick some butt, so that was pretty funny. Yeah,
and just the conversation that those two had following the win over Texas A&M where John insinuated, well, you need to draft me now. Like, I'm going to keep doing this, and you're going to have to draft me at some point. For that to actually come to fruition, I think is pretty cool. Now, Jerry, what Tommy and I talked about last week, and he was spot on. Jerry doesn't have a history of drafting Razorbacks. I mean, Felix Jones, and that's about it. Now, you get Darren McFadden, and maybe there's some other connections there that you brought over free agent deals, but this idea that he drafts Arkansas Razorbacks all the time is what did you make of just him deciding and going with, this is why we need to draft this guy? What was the selection you think have anything to do with him being a Razorback?
Well, the Cowboys have I'm not going to say they've drafted great. Ever since the Jerry Jones regime has been there, they've drafted okay. I mean, they certainly had a Super Bowl champion team many years in a row, and great talent there. But I don't think necessarily they just if a Razorback's been there who suited their needs. I mean, Felix Jones didn't actually work out. He had a couple of okay years, but not a first round draft material type production. So I think Ridgeway was a product of A, they needed a really good defensive tackle, and B, he just happened to be a Razorback, and also I just think a good character, good locker room guy for him. So I just think they haven't drafted in regard to because he's a Razorback, I'll go with this guy over another guy at the same position. So that's my take on it.
Tom, we were talking earlier, after the trade of A.J. Brown, and we know the story of how Treylon Burks ends up with the Titans. What are the expectations? What are the reasonable expectations for Treylon Burks as a rookie with the Titans?
Well, I think he's going to work their way into their probably top 2 or 3 receivers that they target. On draft day when he was picked, they listed that the Titans were the 3rd lowest receiving yardage group in the NFL last year. My Falcons being the worst, but I think that he's going to be in the rotation, and I think fans are going to want an A.J. Brown. Like, he needs to replace A.J. Brown's production, and I don't think it's fair to look at it that way because Brown came into the league and I think he's been in the league 3 years. He's had really good production. But Treylon Burks can be that. So it's just a matter of getting on the same page with Tannehill. And, their run game, it's undeniable. The Titans are a playoff caliber team with a really good run game with Derrick Henry. You don't just forget all about that. So I think Treylon will be fine, even if he doesn't get 150 targets this coming year. I think he'll be fine. He'll play his way in. He'll make some highlight reel catches. I think he'll be a physical blocker for you, and just find his way in the NFL. And I'm not a Titans fan, so I can't relate to what they think about losing A.J. Brown. But, Julio was on that roster last year. Now he's a free agent. Julio is one of his kind of pattern guys, and DK Metcalf guys he paid attention to. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to Treylon Burks having a long, productive career in the league.
I think there'd be a lot of people now Titan fans. All right, with a first-rounder, 2 late-round defensive players taken in the draft, 3 overall, and a handful of free agent signings, what's the narrative now for Sam and his program on the recruiting trail and moving forward? What does this draft do to propel Arkansas ahead?
Yeah, I mean, they can tout it as hey, look, guys, we're putting people in the league, but we can do better. We can do more, and let's get some offensive linemen in there. And Myron Cunningham did not get picked. Myron Cunningham was probably about middle of the road SEC left tackle. Just to be honest about it, and maybe a little bit above average, but they can continue to recruit and develop quality offensive linemen and start putting some of those guys in the league. Hey, who knows? If KJ Jefferson has another year like he just had, you're going to put a quarterback into the league. And I think some of these running backs are going to get a shot down the road a bit. So things are just looking up. They're building a roster. There's a couple of places they still need some depth to it, but they're just a quality SEC roster right now. And to think how far behind they started, and then 2 years in, you're beating A&M, number 7 A&M, and you should have won on the road at Auburn, number 13 at the time. It was just immediate, almost, and I think that the players see what the atmosphere is like here, and they're going to continue to recruit well.
Tom, speaking of recruiting, they bring over another transfer, their 7th, Terry Hampton out of Arkansas State. I know you don't follow recruiting as closely, but a small kid out of El Dorado. What did you think about his addition to what seems like Sam wants more in the defensive line, specifically in the middle?
Yeah, well, they need some players. They need some talent because I don't think Torian Carter can be counted on for production. Well, we're not certain, but Torian Carter was having a great spring until he hurt himself in the spring showcase game. And Isaiah Nichols is going to be a good SEC starter, but they just need more in there. I mean, Marcus Miller's got to continue to get better and help them. And so I'm happy for the kid, an El Dorado kid who wanted to be a Razorback. I'm sure he's going to find his way into the rotation because that position has suffered a little bit. And no, he's not John Ridgeway specifications, listed at 6 feet. So hopefully he can give them some production in there and just be part of the scheme and help with the numbers.
Shift to baseball real quick. Get your thoughts on that. For Brady Tiger this weekend, being a kid from Mississippi, not offered or really heavily recruited by Ole Miss, that game seemed to mean a little bit more, not just the game, the series itself. Watching him pitch, is there any former Razorback that he reminds you of, Tom?
Oh, that's a good question. He's got some repertoire. I mean, you can't mention Kevin Kopps, can you? I mean, that guy was on another planet when it comes to comps, but he's got a really good breaking ball. There was a player just a few years ago, I don't think he was a Razorback, who talked to himself a good bit, but he's just a fiery competitor. But, I was listening to the game yesterday, but it sounded from post-game comments and from radio that the strike zone had shrunk some, and so I didn't see it. I can't tell you, oh, man, he definitely got robbed on a few pitches, but he seemed like he handled it okay. And against a guy like Tim Elko, with the game on the line, with the bases loaded, that could have been a grand slam as easily as it was a pop-out. But he got it. He's got good stuff. He trusts himself. He's a good guy to have at the end of your rotation. And didn't he go 3 innings yesterday? So when Phil Elson was talking about Tygart up, and I'm like thinking, wow, man, they're going to have to get a long deal out of him today. Well, he said he felt better than he did the day before. So good for them. That was they are having to fight, y'all, for every SEC win they get this year. But they're still up on top of the West, and these last 3 series, Auburn, Vandy, Alabama, it's going to be a fight to see if they can hold on to that lead, because Texas A&M's closing schedule is not too salty. And, of course, Auburn's going to be very fired up, because if they sweep the series, they're in the lead in the West.
And to put it in perspective, Wiggins, Morris, and Tygart all went 3 innings each yesterday, but Tygart, 71 pitches, had the most pitches of any of the 3 pitchers yesterday in the game. That was after on Saturday going 23 pitches in 2 innings of work. So he was certainly a key to 2 wins on the weekend. Tom, good stuff. Let's catch up on Thursday.
All right, sounds good, y'all. Have a good week.
All right, Tom Murphy with us from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette every Monday and Thursday here on the Morning Rush.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.